Hi, I'm Tyler Simone, and this is the Happily Self-Conscious podcast, the show where it's cool to be self-conscious. As a personal development enthusiast, I love to learn how I can become better in all areas of life, and I want to share with you transformative tips and tricks to help you also become your best self. Together, we'll learn how we can become more self-conscious. Let's do it. Hello, and welcome to episode number 6 of the Happily Self-Conscious podcast. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having an amazing day so far. My day's been pretty good, pretty eventful. I'm actually really happy to be recording this episode right now because let me tell you, I have been struggling these past few days when it comes to just being creative and honestly just making up my mind in general. So mental clarity. And I honestly feel like I'm going through one of those periods in time where I just need a mental break. I still have work to do, of course, because, bills must be paid, but I'm trying to lean more into the fun and the spontaneous, relaxing things and not so much into work. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself because it's really easy to do that. And when it's time to actually sit back and relax, you can kind of make yourself feel like you're failing or you're not doing enough. But really, it's just time to relax a little. So I'm doing the bare minimum when it comes to work and social media, anything digital really, and spending more time with the people I love, watching TV, listening to music, and just relaxing. I knew it was time to relax because up until this point, for every episode, I have known exactly what I wanted to talk about, and producing the episode was fairly easy. But this time, I just could not decide on a topic for the life of me. And it was really frustrating. And that's never good because it's all downhill from there. Once you get frustrated, it doesn't get better, right? But here we are. We made it to the microphone, which is good. I wanted this to be a pretty free-flowing episode. I didn't want to put too much thought into it, but instead just wanted to go with the flow and let my thoughts just, flow out of me. So I came up with 26 important reminders that will help you not only get through the week, but get through life's toughest moments if you keep them in mind. So these things are things that I have to constantly remind myself of in certain situations in order to, first off, stay sane, stay focused, be myself, and just continue to move forward. So they mean a lot to me and are a big reason why I am who I am today. So I hope that they help you today or whenever you need them most. They are in no particular order. I have no notes for any of these, and I'm just going to riff off of them, okay? So I'm excited. Let's just jump right in. Reminder number 1, you can choose to be someone else at any time. You don't have to continue being the same person that you've always been. This one is big because I think sometimes we get caught up in who we've always been. We continue to do the things that we've always done. And sometimes we can feel in our body that we don't necessarily want to do those things or we don't want to be that person anymore. But for some odd reason, it's really uncomfortable to even think about changing those things about ourselves. But the reality is that you can do something different starting right now. You don't have to be the same person that you've always been. And there's no wrong time to choose differently. This is big for me because I feel like I've always been pretty consistent in the person that I am ever since I was little. But as I've gotten older, I realized there are things about myself that I don't necessarily want to continue on doing. I don't want to always be so accommodating or, we always talk about, or not we, but people pleasing is a huge topic of discussion. I've always kind of been a people pleaser, and I thought that was a good thing when I was younger. And as I've gotten older, I realized that that's not good. That's not a good habit to have when it comes to certain situations. So that's something that I have wanted to change about myself. And whether or not it's people pleasing for you or it's something else, you can always choose to be different. You can choose to become someone else at any point in time. You can go to bed tonight and wake up tomorrow and decide, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be this person anymore. I want to be somebody else, and completely take on new habits if that's what you want to do. So that's a great place to start, actually. I'm glad I put that as number one. You can choose to be someone else at any time. Reminder number 2, you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. There are very few situations where you have to explain who you are, what you want to do, where you're trying to go to anyone. I can see how maybe explaining it to your spouse or I don't know, if you're in like a very serious situation, a very serious relationship, explaining why you're choosing to do something to your person, explaining why you want to move across the country to take a new job, that makes sense, because it's going to impact the other person. Other than those few situations where you're dealing with someone and their life is going to be seriously impacted by a decision that you make, I feel like explaining yourself to anyone else is just not worth it, because in explaining yourself to other people, it's almost inviting in opinions and critique from other people that you don't need. Because if something feels right to you, if you are wanting to do something that aligns with you, you don't really need to explain why it's right to anyone else. One, because they're not going to understand. If it's a vision that you have for yourself, they don't see the vision. It's your vision and your vision alone. So explaining it to someone else, it might be worth it to share your dreams with someone else, but really they can't see what it is that you see, and you kind of open up the door for opinions that are not going to help you in the end. Reminder number 3, it is okay to change your mind. It is okay. You wanted one thing yesterday and you want something else today. That's a perfectly normal human thing to do. You change all the time. Your personality changes. You just, as a person in general, you change. And so your mind is bound to change. And I think that that's really important to remember, is that you can change your mind at any time. You don't have to stick with one thing for the rest of your life. I mean, think about it. When we were younger, we had an idea of who we wanted to be, what we wanted to become when we were older. And now that we're older and we're actually living those lives, we may not have any desire to be that thing anymore. We changed our mind, right? Now, consider if we told ourselves that was just not okay. No, I have to continue to believe that I'm going to be a cheerleader when I'm older for the rest of my life. I would go nowhere. For a few years, I did want to be a professional cheerleader, and I changed my mind, of course, right? Because I got older. I think it's fair to change your mind as time goes on. Don't ever let anybody make you feel bad for changing your mind. It's human. Reminder number 4, your intuition is always right. This is a big one. Our body knows before our mind knows. And sometimes it just doesn't make any sense. And I know it's a big claim to say that your intuition is always right, but I do believe that it is true. And if you think back to those moments where your body was telling you something and you ignored it and you let it go on, you made the decision to go against your intuition, to go against your gut instinct, did it work out for you, in the end? It never does. It never, it never does. I've done it. My intuition told me something, my body was feeling something, and I went against it. And I decided to make the opposite decision. And in the long run, no matter how much time went on, whether it was years, months, whatever, my intuition was correct, which is wild. Going against your intuition may give you some sort of instant gratification. It might feel good in the moment, But in the end, your body knew. The next reminder is you don't owe anyone your time. This was a big lesson for me. As I've gotten older, I realize that everybody's living their own life, right? I'm not doing anyone a favor really by giving them my time. And there's been times where I've given people my time thinking they're going to give me their time in return. It never happens, right? If it doesn't work for them, they're just not going to give me their time like I was so graciously willing to give them mine. And you don't owe anyone your time. Your time is your time. You get to choose what you do with your time. And when it comes to friends, and I think I have something about friendships on this list, but as we get older, time with friends or just acquaintances, anything outside of your full-time job and your family, those situations are inserted when they work best. If you have time left over to give. And I had to learn this the hard way. I would give people my time thinking that they really appreciated the time and thinking that they would also give me time in return. It doesn't work that way. I guess, was the only one thinking that giving time was going to be appreciated and rewarded with time. And I don't know if any of you think that as well or have had to learn that lesson the hard way. But I learned the hard way that everybody else puts their life first and I did not. I was giving people time thinking that they would really appreciate it when really they don't. Everybody is using their time to spend with the people that they really want to give their time to. And everybody outside of that is just extra. And so as I've gotten older, I've just been really, really taking my time back and realizing that I don't owe anyone my time and giving my time to people if it makes sense for me and if I have that energy left over to give. Reminder number 6, if you don't like something about yourself, change it. You don't have to stay the same forever. If you don't like the weight that you're at, you don't like the way your hair looks, you're not happy with what you see in the mirror, you don't like your job. Not to say that it won't take time to change, because depending on what it is that you don't like, it may take some time, it may take some effort, energy, work, but you always have the power to change it in some way. I remember before I cut my hair, if you follow me on Instagram at Miss Tyler Simone, you know what my hair looks like. It's very short. Before I cut it down to look this way, I remember looking in the mirror and I didn't really like what I saw. I wasn't pleased. I wasn't pleased with it. I didn't really feel bad about it, but I just didn't feel great about it. And so I decided to change it because I didn't like that feeling. And everybody has the power to do that. If you don't feel sexy, you don't feel attractive, you can decide to do something else. And that's something that you should remember, is that you have the power to change things about yourself. You are the only person driving the car being your life. You are in the driver's seat and there's nobody else in the car. So you decide whether or not you want to take a different route, and you can do that at any time. Reminder number 7, you don't have to stick around and wait for someone else to finally choose to heal. Everybody heals in their own time. Some people don't want to heal. Some people want to stay the same way forever. And that way may not be healthy for themselves or for the people around them, but you can't change people. And I'm sure we've all heard that before. But to go off of that, I decided to write this reminder because when it comes to healing, people get to choose when they start their own healing. And it's not your job to stick around and to wait for that time to come, because honestly, it may never come. There are people who get older and they never heal. They stay the same exact way for all of their lives. And you sticking around to wait for someone to finally choose to heal, because that is a choice, you are damaging yourself in the process. So if you have to walk away because someone's resistance to healing is really painful for you, it's something that you're going to have to do. And it's not to say that it's really easy to walk away, but sometimes it's really, really necessary. Reminder number 8. Love feels good. This is a really good reminder. Anytime you are in a relationship or even a friendship, anything really in general, when it comes to love, because love is exchanged in relationships and in friendships as well, you feel good because love feels good. Love is very accepting. Love is joyful. Love, it's one of the best feelings in the world, and it feels good. So when it doesn't feel good, that's not love. And if you're wondering whether or not someone loves you, or you're wondering whether or not a situation is healthy for you, remembering that love is a good feeling and you should feel nothing but love is a great reminder, because it kind of tells you everything that you need to know. And it's not to say that you have to let these people go. Maybe you do, or maybe there's just a conversation that needs to be had. But just remembering that love is supposed to feel good will give you the answer that you need when it comes to, okay, what should I do next? Do we need to go seek a counselor? Like, do we need to go to therapy? Do I need to let this person go because this just doesn't feel good? That's a really, really good reminder. Love always feels good. Reminder number 9, don't hold yourself hostage to your past. This is a big one. Let it go. Just whatever it is, just let it go. There's nothing that you can do about the past. It's gone. It's over with. Whatever was done has been done. What you don't want to do is hold yourself hostage to your past. And when this happens, it's probably because we haven't forgiven ourselves or forgiven other people. But the reality is that most of the time, people are doing the best that they can do. And it's not to say that their best is good. It's not to say that it feels good. Sometimes people's best feels absolutely terrible. It's not great. And that's for them to figure out, right? Or it's for us to figure out, because maybe our best at the time wasn't great, but you can't hold yourself to that. You have to allow yourself to grow. And in order to grow, you have to let go of the fact that you did what you did, forgive yourself, accept yourself or accept someone else, and say, that's who you were. I would assume that you were giving me your best. Your best wasn't great. It hurt me, but I forgive in order for me to move forward. And that's it. And you allow yourself to detach and just move on. We can't hold ourselves hostage to the past because there's no changing it. All we can do is move forward. Reminder number 10, we get what we are, so take control of your mind. We don't get what we want. We get what we are. What you think about yourself, what you think about others, and what you think about the world as a whole really matters. If we constantly have negative thoughts, we are going to attract more negativity into our life. If we are coming from a place of love, we're leading with love, our heart is open, we want to see the best in people, 9 times out of 10, we're going to see the best. We're going to see positive things. And that's because we are coming from that place. We get what we are. We don't get what we want. So we have to take control of the things that we're thinking. Our thoughts definitely matter. Our thoughts create our reality. And so it's a matter of taking control of our mind, not allowing our thoughts to run wild, not believing every thought that we have, but choosing what it is that we are focusing on throughout our day. Reminder number 11, your path looks nothing like anyone else's. It's really interesting to watch other people's lives on social media or to read memoirs and things like that. I love a good memoir. But the reality is that your path looks nothing like anyone else's. Your experiences are very specific to you as a person, which means your future is your own and your path looks nothing like anyone else's. And so there is no following in anyone's footsteps. That it just really doesn't exist. And you kind of just have to allow your path to unfold in front of you as you go. And you can't try to emulate anyone else because you as a person have gone through certain things that no one else has in a way that's so specific to you that creates who you are. And therefore, the path that's laid out for you is completely customized to who you are. And so you have to remember, especially in this age of social media where we are watching other people's lives all the time, your path looks nothing like anyone else's. So it's okay to be inspired. It's okay to take notes. Like, I love learning from other people. It's one of my favorite things to do. But I do have to remind myself that my specific path is going to be nothing like anyone else's. And it's pretty exciting if you ask me. Reminder number 12, having standards is not being picky. This is a huge one for me. I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I did view having standards and having things that you wanted, very specific things, as being picky. And I thought that not having those things in mind, not having standards, so to speak, was me being easy to deal with, right? It was me not giving, I wasn't causing trouble. I was just easy to deal with, I guess, for lack of, better words. But having standards is not being picky, or maybe it is, depending on how you look at it. Maybe now that I think about it, it is kind of being picky, but it's not a bad thing. And we have to have standards. We have to have values. We have to have things that we look for in people, in jobs, just in life, because that navigates, that determines what our life is going to look like. It determines our experiences and it creates boundaries for us, which keeps us safe. So having standards is not a bad thing. I've had to learn that as I've gotten older. I need for things to be a certain way. I need for whoever I'm dating to have certain values. I have to have that because, in my experience, when you don't have those things in mind, you just say everything goes. And what that does is it opens the door to literally everything. And that's never good. So you want to make sure that you do have some sort of standard in mind, whether you're going out for a new job or you're jumping back into the dating world. Make sure that you have some sort of list. It doesn't have to be written down, although that does really help, but some sort of list in mind, things that you really want, non-negotiables, because that will give you the blueprint to what it is that you're looking for. Reminder number 13. The way you treat others says more about you than it does about them, no matter what. So the way you treat other people, it says a lot about how you think, how you view people, and who you are. If you're judging someone else, what that tells me is that you judge yourself. You know how they say you can only love someone as much as you love yourself. It's literally the same thing for anything across the board. If you judge people, I know you judge yourself just as harshly. If you critique other people, I know deep down you critique yourself. So therefore, you probably have created some sort of self-image and you're trying to uphold that image because you're critiquing who you truly are. And that's where their whole personal development self-awareness comes in. Because when you know that that's what's happening, when someone is critiquing or judging someone else really harshly, when you understand that that only comes from a judgmental, critical place within that person, everything just starts making so much more sense. Reminder number 14. If you notice that a specific environment is not good for you, you can leave. This is a good one. You don't have to stay somewhere you've been up until this point if it isn't serving you. Sometimes we grow out of our environments. Sometimes it just doesn't fit anymore. Maybe it did. And you don't have to apologize for the fact that it doesn't fit anymore. It kind of goes back to one of the earlier reminders that you don't owe anyone an explanation. It only has to really make sense to you. Sometimes an environment was fine at one point, but we might have outgrown that environment, and it's okay to exit that environment. And it's actually really important that we do, because your environment can stifle your growth. And the people in your environment can be really detrimental to who you are supposed to become. And so when we outgrow something, we have to choose to let it go, no matter how painful it really is. We have to leave and just, appreciate the environment for what it did for us at one point in time, and just accept that it no longer fits our lives anymore. We have to find another environment to grow. For example, I was living with my mom before I started living by myself, and I love my mom and I love my mom's place and I appreciate it. Obviously, she's my mom. But at one point in time, I started to feel like I couldn't grow anymore. I felt like I had to spread my wings and fly, so to speak. And so I had to move into another environment so that I could grow into my potential. I can grow as a woman and as a person. And so I had to let that environment go. And granted, that wasn't a, super painful experience. Some experiences are more painful than others, but it's your choice and it's your job to make sure that you let old environments go so that you can continue to grow. Reminder number 15, you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. The only person you have to prove yourself to is yourself. And that's it. That's it. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You will spend your life trying to prove yourself to people, and it's just a waste of time, honestly. It really, really is. Those who love you don't even look for that. They don't look for you to prove yourself. They just accept you for who you are in all your different seasons of life. So if you ever feel like you're having to prove yourself to someone, I think it's fair to say that it's a situation that you should look a little further into to understand why you feel like you have to do that, because it's just not necessary. Reminder number 16, we are all trying to figure it out. Nobody has all the answers, no matter what it looks like on the outside. This one is huge for me. This might be one of the biggest reminders on my list, because I grew up believing that everyone else had it all together and that I was the only one trying to figure it out, especially if they were married or they had kids. Let me know if you feel the same way, but I don't know what it is, but anytime I would see someone with a family or I saw a woman who was married, just being on the outside looking in, I would think, oh my God, they have it all together. They make money. They've learned how to have a healthy relationship. They've just figured life out, and that's just not the case. Being older and having friends at different stages and being in relationships of my own and just learning, over the years, I've realized that nobody knows anything. Literally no one, not even me. I'm still learning, and that's just how life works. People are married, people have kids, and they have no idea how to be a parent. They have no idea how to be a wife. And from the outside, especially with social media, you're looking at their picture and you're like, oh my God, she's a wife now. She has a ring on her finger. She must know all the secrets. Wow. And that's just not the case. Behind closed doors, you never know what people are going through. You just never know. And so this one was really important that I put on the list, because this has been a learning lesson. It also helps to remember this if you're somebody who struggles with comparison, comparing yourself to other people, comparing where you are in life to where other people are in life. Please don't do that, because you never know. We don't have it all together. Everyone is just trying to figure it out. Reminder number 17, it's okay not to feel okay. This one is also big for me. It may be big for you. I have to let myself not be okay. There are times where I just need to cry. There are times where I just need to lay in bed. And I have had to allow myself that time to not be okay. I'm somebody who is a very positive person. I like to see the brighter side of things. I can pull myself out of a bad mood, and I pride myself on that. I'm very proud of it, but there is a downside where you don't allow the bad or the more negative emotions to just be there and to sit in them. And I've had to learn how to let myself be okay. And you may be the same way. It's not easy, but it's definitely necessary. You don't want to pretend like you're okay when you're not. You don't want to pretend like everything's fine. It's just not a healthy thing. It's not a healthy thing. So it's okay not to feel okay. It's fine. Reminder number 18, friendships change and sometimes they end. I am 28 years old, if you didn't know. I'm 28 years young, and friendships have changed over the years. There are friends who've been around since I was in middle school, and then there are people who I thought were friends that turned out not to be friends, and that's not a bad thing. Because friends, someone being your friend is a big title to hold, right? There's somebody that you confide in. There's someone that's there when you need someone. But I've realized as I've gotten older, I have few friends. I have many acquaintances. I have people that know me, that I know them. We will say hello on social media or whatever. We may have coffee, even lunch. But outside of that, when it comes to going deeper than surface level, it doesn't go that deep, and that's okay. Maybe they're not a friend. They're just an acquaintance. And those are not bad. I think we need a little bit of both. But as I've gotten older, I've realized friendships change. You might be close to someone in one season of your life, and then you move on to another season and they're just not that close to you anymore. And that's natural. That's life. Not everybody's going to be around forever, and everybody's going through their own things. So you just have to assume that dynamics will change over time, and sometimes they end altogether. And it may not be anybody's fault. It may just be a natural occurrence, and that's okay. Reminder number 19, change is good. Change is inevitable. We change as people, the world changes, our opinions change, our choices change. You can't get away from it. You'll never be the same person ever. You might choose one thing today and choose something else tomorrow. And like we were saying earlier in this episode, you might choose tonight before you go to bed, I'm going to be a different person tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I'm just going to adopt this new habit, and that's good. Change is great. And we shouldn't shy away from it, although it can be uncomfortable sometimes. Change is not always comfortable. In fact, it's usually uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. And a lot of times you have to become someone totally different to step into a new season. But just remember that change is a good thing. You don't want to be the same person forever. Reminder number 20, your self-worth does not change based on who you're around or what you're doing. Your self-worth is constant. It's constant. And it honestly, when I think about it, it stays at the same level always, no matter what. Your perspective of your self-worth may waver depending on experiences you've been through and how you're feeling, the season that you're in. You may perceive yourself to be worth less than you actually are, but your self-worth is constant from the very beginning since you were born. It's always up there. It's at 100%. Everybody is worth 100%. Do you always see yourself there? Maybe not, unfortunately. And we all go through those times where your self-worth, you think of yourself as less or, whatever. And it's sad, but it's true. But it doesn't change. It shouldn't change based on who you're around or what you're doing. When we talk about career, we talk about money. You're not worth more because you make more money. Somebody who is making millions of dollars is worth just as much as someone who's making $60,000 a year. They're still a human being. And so I think we should do better about how we perceive ourselves, and just remember that you are worth just as much as everybody else, always. Reminder number 21. No matter how many books you read, you will not understand everything and everybody. This is a big one for me because I like to learn and I like to know all that I can, and I expect that I'll navigate the world better, and I do. But the reality is that I will never understand everything and everybody, and it's the same way, vice versa. Not everybody will understand me. That's just how it is. And I have had to learn that sometimes I just won't get it. I won't. No matter how many times I sit there, I journal about it, I think about it, backwards, forwards, left, right. I'm like considering perspectives, and I'm thinking about possibilities and childhood and where did this come from? Sometimes it's not going to make sense, and that's okay. You're not going to always understand. And we have to be okay with that. Reminder number 22, being cherished is important. I wrote this one down because I realized over time that love is not enough. Being liked is not enough. Interest is not enough. If someone does not cherish you and your heart, if the situation permits, they will not mind causing you pain. So being cherished is what's important. For somebody to cherish your heart, to go out of their way to make sure you feel okay, to make sure you feel safe. Someone who has an interest in being there and cherishing you. That's what's important. And I've had to learn that the hard way. It's a painful lesson to learn, but it's being cherished. And I couldn't put a word to it. I always thought of it like someone holding you in their hand, like delicately, like they're holding something really delicate. I always thought, that's how I want to feel. That's how love should feel. That's how it should feel to be with someone, is like they're holding you in their hand and they don't want to drop you. That's what being cherished to me would look like. And I feel like that is what's important. Reminder number 23. Oftentimes, people don't know what they want, so don't try and become anyone specific for anyone at all. This goes for relationships, friendships, anything. People, they communicate what they like. They communicate that they like a specific type of person, but just think about it. In 2 years, when they evolve, or 3 years, 2 months even, they will want someone or something else, right? So don't waste your time trying to be who someone wants today. It doesn't make sense. Just be yourself and spend time around people who love you for you. Because when you're trying to appease other people, you want to become who they want, they are not going to stay the same. Like we talked about earlier, their opinions, their likes, their choices are going to change. So therefore, their interests change. That's just a normal human thing. So when their interests change and you've now become someone that they wanted a year ago, what happens to you? You can be on this hamster wheel forever, trying to become who they want today, and you'll never get there. You just might as well be yourself. Reminder number 24, we're almost done. You are not the main character in everyone's story. My therapist told me this, actually. I was talking to her about friendship. I was talking to her about, like, why is no one reaching out, And she said, you are not the main character in everyone's story, and it's not personal. And you may relate to this as well. Sometimes you're just like, why doesn't anyone care? Where's everybody at? And the reality is, people are living their own lives, and you're living your own life. And I really thought about this when she told me, because it's true. I'm not the main character in other people's story, and they aren't the main character in mine, if we're being honest. I have a lot going on, right? We all do. And so sometimes we think that we're more important. Not that we're not important, but we think that we hold a certain place in other people's lives. And really, we don't hold that place, right? They have family, they have things going on. So don't take things personal. Everybody's living their own lives. They have obligations, priorities, and bills, and you are not the main character. And it's okay because you are the main character in your life. And that's all that matters. Reminder number 25, not everything is personal. This kind of, is the same thing. You can't take everything personally. People have their reasons for doing certain things. Sometimes we can get caught up in assuming that things were done because of this and they feel that way about me and this is who they are. And really, it was none of that all along. So don't take things personally. A lot of the time, people are going through their own situations, and those situations cause them to be certain ways. It causes them to be a certain person. And we have nothing to do with that. I would say like 8 times out of 10, this is the case. Sometimes it is personal. Sometimes people are manipulative or just outright hurtful, and that's personal. But a lot of the time, it's not personal. It's on them. And we just have to accept that and see that it's not always about us. And the final reminder, number 26, it all works out in the end. It always does. Even if it's painful in the midst of all of it, we're changing, we're making decisions that are really hard to make, we're in pain. It's always for our better good when you think about it. And it's nice to be able to remember that, because when it gets tough, when you're making hard decisions, when you're going through a breakup, when you feel like your heart has been ripped out of your chest, when you lose something, a job or whatever it is, it all works out in the end. We are always okay. What's meant to be will be. If someone wanted to, they would. And that's it. Whew, okay. That was good. This was oddly very therapeutic for me. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. One thing you may or may not know about me is that I really love life, and I love life lessons. And more than that, I love sharing them with other people, because sometimes we've learned something that someone else has just not learned yet. And I don't know about you, but I want all of the information. Like, tell me what I need to know. Before I go, I will leave you with this quote from the one and only Marilyn Monroe, a fellow Gemini, I might add. She says, "I've never fooled anyone. I've let people fool themselves. They didn't bother to find out who and what I was. Instead, they would invent a character for me. I wouldn't argue with them. They were obviously loving somebody I wasn't." This quote stuck out to me because it is such a lovely way to say that the characters that people create in their own minds when it comes to you should not dictate who you view yourself to be or who you are destined to be. I spent a lot of time over the years worrying about how I was coming off to other people, wondering to myself, do they see me as myself? Do they think I'm mean? Do they see me for me? Just so afraid that I was being misunderstood or that my character was being questioned, and it's such a waste of time. Just live your life, and as Marilyn Monroe said, let people fool themselves, but don't spend your life worrying about things that don't concern you. Feel free to download this episode for these quick reminders whenever you need them most. Thank you so much for being here and for listening, as always. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to click the follow button so you don't miss future episodes. And if you see another one on the list that you think looks interesting, take a listen or just download it for later. I'll see you next time.